the NI strategy for energy, right? And we're coming now to Professor Robert Howarth, who we're all waiting to hear. You know, what concerns us so much is the energy strategy that we saw that came out a day before Christmas. We were shocked when we saw it. It rebrands fracking, you know, and the natural gas industry is now called renewable gas or lower carbon gas, or blue hydrogen. And, you know, that's the CCS process, carbon capture and storage. And, you know, they're saying we're encouraging people to get connected to the gas network, even though in a few years' time, you're not going to be able to buy a gas boiler. They're saying they've got that statutory duty to promote gas, and that's what they're doing. But now they want to say they're going to replace all the natural gas with renewable gas, and they're going to get the gas infrastructure built out just to be hydrogen ready. And when we look into the decarbonisation reports and everything, and we have to thank Tom White for excellent work on this, you know, the heavy gas dependency in 2050, 60% of it coming from blue hydrogen. That's blue hydrogen, that's natural gas. You know, we can't waste energy, money, lives on a plan that can't succeed, that uses up loads more subsidies, props up the gas industry and creates stranded assets. We need peace, we need health, we need healing, we need well-being. In this community, we really need that. We do not need more trauma. This is just so important. And that's why we are appealing for international help and support now at this time, because it is very difficult in elections here. There is so much hurt, there is so much pain. People have a tradition here of voting for one side to keep the other side out. And that makes us vulnerable on these issues. Now, that's our situation. Thank you for listening in regard to the health impact assessment. I'm going to pass over now to Professor Robert Howarth, who's kindly joining us from Cornell University, who did an excellent study. And his study is around, you know, how green is blue hydrogen? And we might want to start off, Professor Howarth, with just asking you, what's the difference between green hydrogen and blue hydrogen, grey hydrogen? We might need that little ABC at the beginning, I think, just for people, just to get us, start us gently, be gentle with us as to what the fracking industry's new words, and help us to learn. Thank you so much, Professor Howarth.
Thank you, Diane. Let me try to get my slides in order here. It's taking a little bit of time, but be with you in a minute. Let's see.
Oh,
now, this
great.
worked fine. When we tried it out, it's not so good now, right?
That's great. I can see that. It's
okay.
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, just a little bit of background before I get directly into hydrogen. I'm a Earth system scientist. I've worked on the role of methane in global warming, global climate disruption for well, forever, 40 years basically. But I've worked. I'm very pleased to be here with my old friends Kathy Nolan and Mark Ruffalo today. They were leaders in the fracking ban in New York, and as you've heard, the public health consequences were the major driver of our ban of fracked gas in New York. But there's also always been a climate aspect to fracked gas, and in the background, fracked shale gas came along at the same time that natural gas was being sold as a bridge fuel. This idea that we could somehow replace coal with natural gas and continue to use fossil fuels. And the logic for that is that there's a little bit less carbon dioxide emitted when you burn natural gas compared to coal to get the same amount of energy. The problem with that is that natural gas, shale gas included, is almost entirely methane. And methane is an incredibly potent greenhouse gas. It's more than 100 times more powerful than carbon dioxide in terms of its warming influence. people have been slow to realize that, but the very latest from the international science community, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in their report last summer, tells us that of the 1.1 degrees of warming that the Earth has experienced since the start of the Industrial Revolution, 0.5 degrees of that are attributable to methane. So methane is a really important greenhouse gas. At the COP26 meeting in Glasgow just a few months ago, all of the nations of the world were saying we need to reduce methane. We can reduce methane by at least 30% over the next 8 years. And there's general agreement in the scientific community now that reducing methane is, in fact, the low-hanging fruit for slowing the rate of global warming. If we were to reduce methane emissions by 30% over the next 8 years, which is entirely doable, then we will slow the amount to which the planet will have warmed by about 0.25 degrees by 2040. That's really, really important. Now, unfortunately, methane is rising rapidly in the atmosphere. Last year was the most rapid rise ever in time we've been measuring it over the last 50 years. And my research and a lot of other research suggests strongly that the #1 driver of that increase in methane globally is shale gas development in the United States. So we really don't want to have any more fracked gas. It's great we've banned it in New York, but we've not banned it in the US. It's a real problem. So let me get directly to blue hydrogen now. I started looking at blue hydrogen. I'm on a commission for the state of New York that's charged with coming up with an implementation plan to take us to carbon neutrality quickly. Under New York state law, we're supposed to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 40% 8 years from now across all sectors. And the biggest single driver of our greenhouse gas emissions in the state is heating of our homes, heating of our buildings, mostly with natural gas. So we need to reduce that. And yet the natural gas industry is coming to us and saying, blue hydrogen is the key. Just substitute in blue hydrogen for natural gas. So what is blue hydrogen? Well, as Diana said, hydrogen comes in many colors. It can be produced from fossil fuels, or it can be produced from electricity with electrolysis of water to hydrogen and oxygen if it's made from electricity. The gray hydrogen is the dominant form of hydrogen globally now, certainly in Europe and the United States, and that's made entirely from natural gas. Blue hydrogen is also made from natural gas, but with carbon capture and storage. And green hydrogen is made using 100% renewable electricity to electrolyze water. The green hydrogen is truly green. It truly has a low greenhouse gas footprint. Blue hydrogen is something else altogether. Today, 96% of all the hydrogen produced globally is coming from fossil fuels. And again, in Europe, I'm sure in Ireland, in the US, that's coming entirely from natural gas. Natural gas is mostly methane, and it's the feed product for this hydrogen production. Basically, that methane is taken and it's put under high heat and pressure. A little bit of steam is added, and the methane decomposes into hydrogen and carbon dioxide. That heat and the pressure are coming from burning natural gas. So natural gas is both the feedstock and the power source, and there's a lot of gas used for both. And this is what we call gray hydrogen. It has very large emissions of carbon dioxide. It also has very large emissions of methane, because you cannot use natural gas, shale gas, fracked gas. You cannot use those without having a fair amount of the methane escape unburned to the atmosphere. It's just not possible. The blue hydrogen is the same as gray hydrogen, but with carbon capture and storage. This is a new idea. The term was first invented only 7 years ago, less than 7 years ago, in 2015 by Air Liquide, the French gas company. It's been very, very heavily promoted since about 2017 by this group called the Hydrogen Council, which was only established in 2017. And mostly what they do is promote blue hydrogen. This group was set up by BP, Shell, Total, and a few other oil companies. So this is a product of the oil and gas industry. And quite frankly, it's greenwashing. So far, there are only 2 commercial blue hydrogen facilities globally. There's one in Texas and one in Alberta. And the industry is heavily promoting this blue hydrogen. Here's one example. In this case, they're calling it nearly zero emissions with this wonderful fuel, they say. Sometimes they say low emissions. The fact is the science doesn't bear that out. And there was no science behind these claims that it was a low emission fuel. I was skeptical when they first came to our commission in New York and proposed this, but I started looking for the literature, the information, the data to support it, and the information simply was not there. So working with Mark Jacobson, I think one of the great engineers of the world, a professor at Stanford, we undertook that analysis and we published a paper last summer. It's one of the very few peer-reviewed analysis of what the greenhouse gas footprint of even gray hydrogen would look like. Really the first for blue hydrogen, and we're the first to include the methane emissions in addition to carbon dioxide for either gray or blue hydrogen. And I just want to tell you a little bit about what we did, a little bit of the actual science. It's a very straightforward paper. We knew industry wouldn't like this. And so we were very, very careful in our logic, very conservative. So we're looking at a few things. We're looking at how much of the carbon dioxide is actually captured from this process of decomposing methane into hydrogen and CO2. And again, there are two plants that have done that. They're actually capturing around 79, 80% of the carbon dioxide, but we gave them the benefit of the doubt and said maybe it's 85. Industry says they can do up to 90. So we did a sensitivity analysis looking at that. You also, again, are burning natural gas to provide the heat and pressure. So far, industry hasn't tried to capture the carbon dioxide from that, so it's 0%. But if you look at power plants, fossil fuel burning power plants, where industries tried to capture carbon dioxide, 55 to 60% is pretty good. 65% is the best they've ever done in a sustained way. But again, industry says they might be able to do 90%. So we gave them the benefit of the doubt and did a 90% sensitivity analysis, but 65% was our baseline level. And then we used the best data there are on how much methane is emitted. And that's my real specialty. And I have a tremendous amount of confidence in this. But we also looked at a sensitivity analysis of higher or lower methane. And this is our take-home figure from the paper. We're looking at the greenhouse gas emissions of hydrogen on the 3 bars to the left, compared to fossil fuels, the 3 bars to the right. The yellow color are the direct carbon dioxide emissions from using these fuels, and the red bars are the methane emissions associated with using these fuels converted into equivalencies of carbon dioxide. So you can look at it as a whole. So gray hydrogen there on the left, that's the traditional hydrogen we're using now. It indeed is a really bad emitter, bad polluter, far worse than fossil fuels. But the blue hydrogen, or the 2 bars next to it, the first one is modeling what industry has done today with blue hydrogen, which is to simply go after the carbon dioxide that's emitted from the decomposition of the methane and not trying to go after the combustion of the natural gas carbon dioxide. And the next one over is if industry were to try and capture the carbon dioxide from that combustion as well. And what you can see is the carbon dioxide emissions go down, but they don't go to 0 because there's still a lot of carbon dioxide emissions from these processes. And the methane emissions go up because you're actually using more natural gas in this whole process. You can see why the natural gas industry likes it. They use a lot of natural gas with a lot of methane emissions. Bottom line is that the blue hydrogen footprint is a little bit better than gray hydrogen, but not by much. And it's substantially worse than simply using any fossil fuel. We are better off simply burning natural gas instead, which we shouldn't be doing because we need to move to 100% renewable energy quickly into the future. For those of you who want a quick synopsis of it, the New York Times did a really nice job covering our paper the day it came out last August, and I definitely urge you to take a look at this paper. And I just want to acknowledge that this is part of our work at the Methane Project at Cornell. We've been funded for 10 years now by the Park Foundation, as well as by Cornell to work on this. And there's a lot more detail available and other talks and papers available at howarthlab.org if you're interested. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this today. The public health consequences of fracking are bad, but the climate aspects are really, really bad as well. And this blue hydrogen is nothing but greenwashing to continue to sell natural gas. So thank you.
Thank you Thank you so much. That is just so valuable for us to have. Thank you very much, Professor Howarth. I just want to ask one question of you before we'll just take that before we go to Mark Ruffalo and hear his impression now of where we're at the moment. And that is, one of our parties put into the climate bill an amendment for carbon capture and storage. When they're putting in for that amendment to make provision for carbon capture and storage, should we be worried about that, and what does that mean?
Yes, just a quick answer, because I hate to be between your audience and my friend Mark Ruffalo. But you know what our paper demonstrated, we delved into the full literature on carbon capture, and it's a very nice summary, not just for the hydrogen issue, but carbon capture in general. Again, if you're trying to capture carbon dioxide from burning of fossil fuels, a 65% capture rate is really, really good. That's the gross capture rate. And it takes a tremendous amount of energy. And unless you're also, if you're burning more fossil fuels for that energy, and you're not also capturing the carbon dioxide emissions from those, then the net effect is to reduce the carbon dioxide emissions by 25%. And that's sort of where the industry is. Also, to date, if you look at what industry has done, they take the captured carbon dioxide, almost all of that's used for enhanced oil recovery. They inject it into old oil wells and get more oil back out, and most of it comes right back to the atmosphere.
So
they're saying they're going to store it long term, right? How are you going to do that? Our paper gave them the benefit of the doubt and said, sure, you can do this thing. You can take this carbon dioxide, you can get it to some long-term storage without using more energy, without more emissions, and sure, it will stay there forever. The reality is you can't do that. And the industry has a really poor track record on that. So I would be very, very skeptical of carbon capture and storage.
So what carbon capture and storage is really about fossil fuels and natural gas, and for a party that put in for carbon capture and storage amendment is really planning to develop, natural gas and fracking. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And that's happening globally. Our U.S. government is also now subsidizing this carbon capture and storage, and it's just a terrible idea. What it does is allow the fossil fuel industry to perpetuate this idea that somehow we can deal with our energy future through that, as opposed to going to renewables and a fossil fuel future, which is what we really need to do. So it's a huge subsidy, and it's a disservice to society, a big subsidy to the oil and gas industry.
So thank you. Thank you for that clarity, Professor Howarth, because we were very concerned when Sinn Féin put an amendment into our climate bill last week, to make provision for carbon capture and storage, when they're the ones that we need to be working with the Alliance Party and Ulster Unionists to actually ban petroleum licensing, and they failed to act, and we're very worried about that. So that brings us clarity, because actions speak louder than words, and that brings us clarity of our situation here and why we are so worried, because we do need them to head in the right direction with their actions. And finally, last but no means least, thank you, everybody. And it is now time, finally, to ask Mark Ruffalo for some words of wisdom, inspiration, some hope, and help. Thank you. Mark,
you're muted, Mark.
There you go.
Sorry, thank you, Diane, and thank you, Bob, who I've known for so long, and I'm always so impressed by your knowledge and your continued work in this field. Kathy Dolan, same thing with the Health Compendium, and Dr. O'Dolan for your on the ground analysis of what's coming your way. First of all, I do want to say for people who are watching, there is a website, Sinn Féin stopfracking.org. If you want that to go to sign up and help out and put pressure. But the one thing that's clear is, and it's always been this way, is when you hear the professionals actually talking about it, you say this is insane. And it's always been that way, which is why Sinn Féin Your government has obfuscated actual study, have not brought in the people that are on this call to hear from, are not using the compendium to guide them. And it's always a clear sign that they are working hand in glove with the fossil fuel industry, sadly. I'm sad to say. But the picture that starts to develop is that this is insane on every single level. And there's really nothing good to come out of it. And anyone with half a brain and has some ideological predisposition, when they hear this, they decide that this is a bad idea. That's what happened in New York State. Listen, the reason I'm here is because I lived this, I experienced this, I went through it. I was up at night. It was me and my family and all of our friends. We were terrified. We were bringing up children. We had moms. There was pregnant women. We were just like you, and we lived through this. And we fought it. And we won the day. And we won the day because the science led the way. And we didn't have the same kind of science that you guys have available to you now. We didn't have the health compendium. We didn't have. We had the beginning of Bob's work and Tony and Grafia's work. And there was a lot of anecdotal evidence, but we didn't have the 15 years or a decade of real scientific study to show us what this was really about. And that's when we won. And so you guys are starting way ahead of us, but we had to work our butts off. We organized, we had sleepless nights, and year by year, we had to fight not only oil and gas industry, but our politicians and even the green parties or the green orgs. We were fighting against them as well. So, but you have your work cut out for you, but this is doable. And you have great science and you have great information to win this fight with. Now, the difference between you and us is that you've been through decades of trauma, like Dianne was saying, like Dr. Nolan is saying, and like Dr. O'Dolan are saying, that what the societal impacts of this industrialization, this industrial build out are profound. I saw it happen. I saw families turn against families, neighbors turn against neighbors. I saw people being poisoned, people getting sick, people dying. I saw industry coming in and harassing people. I saw them harassing journalists. I saw them harassing artists. I saw them harassing filmmakers. I saw them harassing other community members, to the point where even the state started to create a terrorist file against people who were just simply screening documentaries against fracking in Pennsylvania. So there's another cost to this, which is the community cost, which we talked about last time I was with you. It's profound, and especially if you're steeped in trauma. One thing I do want to say is it's so crazy that they just keep changing the name. We used to say, "Don't frack my mother," you know? You guys could say, "Don't blue hydrogen my mother," because it is the mothers who bear the burden of this. And I know that I don't want that to happen to my mom. And you shouldn't want it to happen to your mom. And that should be enough to push you to make sure that Sinn Féin actually acts on what they said they were going to do. We have years of rhetoric with very little action right now, and they're backing off, which makes me think somebody got to these people, because they're not taking the appropriate action. They're not responding in the same way that all of this information is dictating that they do, or their past rhetoric. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth, and we want them to stop, and we want them to take some serious action. So they keep talking about how they'll stop the individual licenses, but they aren't saying they will stop the policy that will stop the licensing of huge tracts of land or licensed areas to begin with. It's all semantics. We had a saying in New York. It was, "Don't let the camel get its head in the tent because the rest of the body is following. And that's their MO. They do it incrementally so that people aren't looking. And the fact that they're cynically taking this pandemic and trying to slip this by when everyone is suffering and struggling and grieving is should be enough to make you very, very angry. And I'm telling you, it's purposeful. It's part of the play, and it's shameful. So here's a few questions that I think Sinn Féin needs to answer. Why have they not said equivocally that they will work with other parties and make a new policy that will stop the DUP from moving forward with their plans? Why hasn't that happened? There's a reason, right? Why? Tell us why. Why are they pushing a carbon capture and storage amendment that will allow for the infrastructure of blue hydrogen in Northern Ireland's climate bill if, in fact, they are thinking or saying they want to stop burning fossil fuels? This is a massive build out that is going to mortgage the future of your people, your tax dollars, to tie you to an industry that is dying. Why? Why is that language in your climate bill? Why have they not said that they will conduct a full independent public health assessment that the health professionals are asking for before they even consider a licensing policy that will poison the people? Why are we not having this kind of discussion that Friends from Earth and Deidre and Dianne have to put together? Sorry. Together in our off time. Why is that not happening? And why are they silent on DUP's energy strategy plan and blue hydrogen? Why are we not hearing the same rhetoric that we were hearing for the past 10 years on what they feel is up with blue hydrogen? Why? Where are you? And I'll tell you why. From what I know and what I've seen, and what these people who are with you have seen, who've lived through it, it's because they are playing politics with your future. Actions speak louder than words. And it's time for Sinn Féin to get off the sidelines and start to take action. We're watching, everyone's watching. You see, there's people from all over the world on this call, this impromptu call. This is a world issue. It's not just Northern Ireland, and God bless Northern Ireland for having the heart to fight through this, even in the midst of your loss and your grief and your trauma. You know, we came up with a term, and it was sacrificial zones, sacrificial people. And I hate to say it, when you look at all of the statistics, they are looking at your region as a sacrificial zone. They are cynically expecting you not to fight. They're cynically expecting you to not to understand. And they're cynically expecting to push this through during another world trauma. If it's not obscene on the face, then it's incredibly irresponsible. So thanks for having me here, and all of my friends and all of us together. And I'm just happy that I can lend a little bit of our wisdom and our lived experience to you there now, and ask, you know, there's a really promising future waiting for us. We don't have to go backwards. This is a backwards move. We have all the technology we need to move forward in a clean way, in a peaceful way, in a way that gives equity to people. And what we always say is whoever controls your energy controls your destiny. And do you want your energy, your destiny controlled by the oil and gas industry, or do you want your destiny controlled by the communities around you, by you, yourselves, and what you can harvest that's falling every day all around us on God's great earth? So I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I feel some comfort that we had the opportunity to give the statistics and the history of our community here in Northern Ireland, and I think that you can see that the community is incredibly vulnerable, and especially, you know, at the time of a pandemic, incredibly vulnerable, and you can see that how shocked we are when we see a really bad fracking bill coming from Sinn Féin, and then to see carbon capture and storage going in when we really need them to work with the Alliance and Ulster Unionist Party. Last time we asked you for a message from Mary Lou and Michelle O'Neill. We're heading into an election now. It's very difficult in Northern Ireland. It's not a normal election. It's not a normal democracy because we've had so much trouble. You're fresh in the mind of the statistics and the health profile of this community. Would you like your opportunity to send another message to Mary Lou at this time?
I mean, the message is the same. Do what you say you're going to do, and be the hero. You know, we all have a chance in our lives, and there are few chances where we can be heroes, where we somehow step out of our comfort zone to do something greater for the good of all, something bigger than ourselves. And I don't know what kind of political deal is sitting on your desk. I don't know, you know, what the industry is offering you, but I'll tell you one thing: it never comes through. They're never honest. They never keep their promises, and you will be remembered forever by this mistake. And it's really on you. We all know that. You can't keep shoveling blame from one side to the next. The gig is up. So do what you said you're going to do. Do the right thing. We'll love you. Everyone will love you. Everyone's waiting here to love you. Everyone's waiting for you to do the right thing. Everyone sees it. We're not, you know, people aren't foolish. And so, yes, I invite you to do the right thing and do what you say you're going to do. What do you already said you're going to do? It's easy. You're already 3/4 of the way there. Just take the last step and you'll be a hero. You'll be in the end zone. People will cheer for you. And I'll just leave it with an anecdote from Governor Cuomo. When he was going to ban fracking, we fought him and we fought him and we fought him. And he tried every single way he possibly could to make this happen for that industry. And in the end, just before he banned it, he called me and he said, you know, Mark, I was thinking of my father who just passed away. And this is something that he would have loved. This is something that he cared for the people. And this is something that's for the people. And I said to him, Governor, you have no idea how many people are loving you right now. You have no idea how many people whose lives have been hanging in the balance, who couldn't sleep, who had the sword of Damocles hanging over their head for the last 5 years, and who will be so relieved and so grateful that you were a champion to them. And he said, it's one of the greatest things I've ever done. You guys could be that.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And thank you to everybody who joined us this evening from across the world. We can see messages from Japan, America, Argentina, across the world. We want to thank you so much for caring enough about our community here to join us. We need you. We need you to stay in touch. We need you to, get in touch with us. The website is there. There's a Facebook pages, Belcoo Frack Free, Lamp for Mana. There's lots of connections there through the websites, Frack Action New York, Friends of the Earth. We have a big network and it's growing, but we need a bigger network. We need you. We need our community well-being. We need our peace. We need our stability, and we need to be improving the health and well-being of the community in Northern Ireland. It's long overdue. So thank you very much, everybody, and all our presenters, Carlo Dolan, Kathy Nolan, Professor Howarth, and for FRAC Action and Friends of the Earth for all the tech support. Thank you so much to everybody and for joining us and everything. So good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care,
Very
everyone.
much. Take action.
Take
Okay.
action.
Take action.
Take action. Sinn Féin,
Sure,
stop
if
threatening.
you don't get a mandate, a written mandate of then say you will vote for a different party.
Yes, vote different.
Yeah, they need our votes.